Carl Seelbach. I am originally from the East Coast, the New York Hudson Valley. I grew up on a dairy farm, and I've always kind of worked with my hands, and I had skills in math, and I was a little unsure going to college, but I decided on engineering school. Went up the road a bit, an hour or two away in Troy, New York, to Rensselaer Polytechnic. Graduated in the first Great Recession, so there weren't the jobs available, and I decided to do the post-college travel. I went to Europe and developed even more experience with construction a little differently. Ended up in California and decided working in the trades is what gave me the most satisfaction, and started working with a small contractor doing high-end residential. With my background, developed into running jobs and organizing a subcontractor role, which I took to another level, became a contractor a little later. But mostly it was high-end residential, a little bit of commercial in the city in San Francisco. But I've worked Palo Alto, East Bay Hills, most of the Bay Area. I became acquainted with Cynthia Correa, who had been here many years. At that time, the current department chair for carpentry. She thought I'd be an excellent fit. So I started out part-time, and come full circle, the most recent Great Recession, I waited through that for a couple years, but then by 2010, most of all the jobs dried up, and here I was now, able to put more focus, and I started working more at Laney and loving it. So kind of a circuitous route, but I've really become very comfortable and enamored teaching here. We're Laney Carpentry, Laney College. We're located here in Oakland, California. We focus on construction. What we do is build. Our program encompasses all those aspects, and we divide certain focus things like foundations, rough framing. We have more general courses like beginning carpentry, but they all overlap depending on the project we're doing. We're project-based learning here, but all the courses, if you combine them, will allow pretty much anyone interested in our two-year program to climb literally through the courses and hopefully be building a house while we're doing it. And if you time it right, you can pretty much complete a house. Our program is 2 years, 4 semesters, but a lot of students stretch that longer. So in addition to the beginning carpentry, we also have a high performance building course, which incorporates the new technologies and the new advancements in building. A big part of our program is practicing safety. We have a OSHA 30 class. In the second, third semesters, there's other opportunities to take more design build classes and advanced classes such as stair building and roof framing. There's also aspects of curriculum cover math for the trades, but essentially our program focuses on labs, right? So project-based. We start out with a lecture, and our core classes spend up to 5 hours a day per class in the lab because we want to model the real world working environment. And when we're building homes and projects in the community, you need that time frame. So it works well, but it's definitely a challenge for some of our students, which does not enable them to always be able to take the class if they're working days. But ultimately, we're kind of handcuffed because it's challenging to build at night. We have a 2-year program that if you take all our classes, you can probably complete easily in 4 semesters, which is a certificate, and you can parlay the general education to create a degree, an Associate of Science degree. Because of the need for shorter stint, we've created a 1-year certificate, which allows students to get the skills to a employable level. So that's our basic carpentry degree versus our advanced carpentry degree. We are one of the few, if not handful of schools across the country that build homes in the community. But there's not many others that do. Where we have built as a department, working with the city of Oakland, where we've built affordable housing, complete remodels, and they work with us to give the students the required lab, if you will, to create the skills and the experience needed to gain employment in the community. So when I came here, that was our signature, and it was one of my highlights of my career was essentially building a passive house. Now, passive house for many out there is a specific technique of building highly ultra energy efficient home that requires 10% of the typical energy for a standard house in the country. So I was pretty excited. We had a lot of planning, and in order to build in this manner, you really need to have everybody on board. So we worked with a community, Passive House California, in addition to the city of Oakland, who had this property in East Oakland. And it essentially ended up being a total remodel from everything, even we added to it. So we started with an additional bedroom to a 2-1, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and created a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And so it was perfect for students. They got to build a foundation. They got to see from the ground up how involved it is to create this passive house, which is designed to be airtight, super insulated, triple glazed windows, and designed with a heat recovery ventilator, because it's really a whole new concept of building where the focus is on ventilation versus heating and cooling. So we got the airtightness and the ability to create this controllable interior environment by Passive House standards. So I just really got into the approach and the results that Passive House brings. And now I've evolved, to a point where you can even build better than Passive House. We also have a codes class, and I would like to inject and update it more, because a lot of things are finally starting to change. But the whole concept of government and cities enacting these, right? It starts locally and it kind of moves up, hopefully, so we can get these national mandates. Backing up the 2 current projects we're working on for our community partners, we entered a California state contest for community colleges and universities back in 2017 maybe, at SMUD, which is a Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and they sponsored this net zero tiny house contest, and they had many parameters that you were going to be judged on, energy efficiency being priority, but design, it even included a landscape design, architecture, interior design. There was about 6 of them, and best overall. But one of the metrics was you had a budget, and I believe it was $35,000 to build everything. We entered it pretty much on our own, and many other colleges partnered. There was 10 total, and I mean, there were some fantastic projects. We didn't win best overall, partly because we didn't spend as much money as everybody else did. We ended up winning 4 aspects of the design competition, and I think we placed a very close second in the overall. So it's another high watermark, extremely proud of. And my colleague Matt Wolpe led that project, and he was only adjunct at the time. It was a really amazing collaborative. We worked with Woodtech. They did the cabinetry. Welding came in and helped install the brackets so we could put solar on, which our electrical department installed. And it happened in literally 2 months. We were net zero because we did put solar on, but we built to Passive House standards. We like to consider ourselves cutting edge. Tiny house wasn't really even known back then. It's kind of, we move to what moves around us, right? And there was a huge movement swelling and a lot of people asking about it. So I think these are our 8th and 9th tiny houses we've built in the last 12 years. I don't want to create us to be a tiny house factory, but it really blended well during COVID because we can build them on campus. As far as an experience for students, it's amazing. Students feel confident. We've had several students leave and, hey, I literally built a tiny house. And the biggest impact working here is getting those responses, right? I can do this. What happened when I first started working here is, we had all those classes and, a great program, but it had never really been updated, right? And, so therefore, with my experience and, development in those trainings, I said, we need to develop a program, at least a class. And so I think coming out of that recession of '08, there was a huge amount of federal money, and we had a few cohorts based on energy efficiency. And so a new course was adapted called Energy Efficiency and Weatherization. And it was kind of tied into HVAC, which we call Environmental Control Technology Department here at Laney. But so I realized I could essentially take and apply the energy efficiency, but more than energy efficiency is the health and comfort, sustainability, green, combine all those and do all those best practices. So we have what we call high performance building as a class and a proficiency. It's just a small certificate, but essentially it's a class that takes the deep dive into all of this. Every other class, I end up talking about this class and encouraging students to take this class. And it is required for both our 1-year and 2-year certificates in the AS degree. So all students are going to get it, but there's so much to share with it in a lot of our classes that, I do, when the opening happens in a normal situation when we're building, it's build smarter. Do we really have to do a traditional build where we add so many studs, or do we really need this size header for the window? It's only a 2-foot opening. So I include all of those kind of theories from high performance building or home performance, creating a home that performs for you. We actually do combustions. That's part of the high performance curriculum. And I'm hoping, well, I'll never eliminate it, but I'm hoping by the time when I leave here, that combustion appliances will be, gone by the wayside. But yes, it's part of our curriculum. It is because when you're doing a blower door test, which is part of the curriculum we do here, we work with thermal imaging cameras as part of the high performance building course. And that is part of it, and teach students about the impact, the dangers of not only carbon monoxide and the impact of just burning natural gas and other potential toxins like benzene. It's the importance of ventilation and the importance of the awareness. I think if people can start seeing some data about the impact of this, that'll start to foster more change. Yeah, and it's even the push now from the state and funding is workforce development because of that. And so we do have co-op ed. You can use so many units to embellish your career here so that you don't have to take as many classes. We're also working on credit for prior learning to help us and also help students get that degree, because who knows, I think having that degree down the road, as it was for me as an engineer, it was required to teach at Laney, and if I didn't have that bachelor's of science degree, I wouldn't have been eligible to teach. So I try to encourage students, even when they go off into work, that try to keep your thoughts open to come back or take one class a week, that you can slowly get that degree that might really benefit you down the road. Because we really are a pre-apprenticeship program. A lot of students come in, grabbing a hammer, never used a circular saw, very weak in math skills, and so, but it depends on the motivation. It depends on the urgency, right? Some students, they're supporting their families and they're just out of high school and they just got to get a job, and they can't get a job, they'll come to Laney until they get a job. So, you just do the best you can. And I can't really say it's impacting us, is because since COVID, in the last 4 years, we've been, I'd say 95%, nearly 100% full enrollment. We're also seeing more of a movement towards industrialized construction, prefab, modular, even urban block, where they take abandoned containers and turn them into housing or offices or some kind of structure. There's a lot of technology starting to become available and usable to average students, that I would say that you're going to see a continuance of electrification, installation of heat pumps, and a lot of alignment with the HVAC industry and the electrical, which all ties into what we do here, because we do have an introduction, I didn't mention, an introduction to electrical as well as plumbing. But I really see that technology springboarding into more manufacturing of homes. Our population is developing those skills because there's always going to be remodels, right? A lot of this industrialized construction, if to use a generic term, is going to be for multiplexes, multi-units, which we really need, and there's a huge push for it. So I don't want to spread our wings too wide. We do have an avenue from students in this program, which I haven't really talked about, which is our alliance. We just developed a new top code for digital fabrication, our Fab Lab, which we have digital fabrication courses. So we can introduce them, we do introduce them to software and the ability to translate that to machines, which will give students that connection to the industrialized construction. So we are developing that, I guess, as kind of a subset of actually teaching it. I think we have that pathway with more experts right next door in the Fab Lab, and trying to create that avenue with giving them skills here and also tying it into creating projects through a digital fabrication class, and then taking it another level, maybe taking a BIM or building information modeling in architect or engineering, or even next door in wood technology. And that's the beauty of Laney. We have so many partners that we all can work together and give students that opportunity. But we're very tied into creating a pathway for students, and we're currently actually working on it, trying to work with a local nonprofit and working on a grant to help subsidize that movement. And carpentry, wood tech, machining, and architecture all have programs that require students to use the Fab Lab. So we're one of 5 departments that have classes that integrate the Fab Labs machines into their curriculum. And we've created certificates that we're going to also re-look at, because I think we set the bar pretty high. But we have a lot of industry jobs opening up, calling the Fab Lab, asking. And so that is just naturally, okay, there's that possibility for placing students. We will talk to our advisory board, create an advisory board, and say, okay, how would you create these certificates that would facilitate for a pathway to their needs? I've had students now, we have a couple different avenues. We're mostly residential construction, but we also have students that want to come and just get it in the union. It's fine. And we had one student that did place in the union, and he came back all smiles, pick up his certificate, and he's working in town, I forget the name, but for a commercial outfit, running a job making $35 an hour, had a 2-year degree, but had experience coming in. So he just embellished a lot of his skills, but it developed into a great carpenter. Started at 34. That's on the high end. A lot of, I know a couple contractors that we place regularly. Generally, $20 to $25 an hour is I'm hearing a lot more $25 an hour and up for essentially students green out of the program. So I haven't gotten some feedback. Another student is building an ADU back in Massachusetts to passive house standards and calls me with questions. So we get a lot of great outcomes even outside of placing them, but that's kind of my biggest motivation is to create a program that we can give them the experience to get real jobs. But they're working on, mostly we place them in residential remodels in the Bay Area. There's a few, like I said, Urban Block is kind of a unique company that we've placed a lot of students. Eco Performance Builders, we place students. Factory OS, we placed a student, which is a union-based job as well. But I'd say most of them are getting into residential, where there's a huge demand. We're getting calls, and you look at any projections, and supply and demand is demand and the supply. So I'm hopeful that we can start creating a little bit more balance. But we're a small program, but very, very proud of what our students are getting into. I very rarely do I have a student say, calling me in the summer, I can't find work. I haven't gotten one call like that. So a lot of them are finding work even, on their own. Even just last semester, I had a great student, very, motivated, and it was very helpful because having experience and, here's someone that I could, envision helping almost be inherently a student assistant. 3, 4, maybe a month into the class, called me up and said, Carl, I got this job offer and I really want to be in the program. What do you think I should do? And I'm like, you came to this program for what? And he goes, well, I came to get the experience. Well, you got it. You need to work. If you find the right company, if this company works out, they will mentor you and give you that experience. But if it doesn't come back, right? And so we've worked and talked about, well, how do we capture that student?